Hello to you all. This is Kevin Rachinsky from the Georgia Center for Assessment. We're really looking forward to the webinars that we have scheduled with you all on July 9th and 14th. And in this brief video, we'll provide an overview of those two webinars. We'll also provide some suggestions on the data set to bring in. The overall objective of the webinars is data analysis, and specifically a reliable process that we can apply anytime we are analyzing assessment data in the interest of identifying any learning gaps that we might see among our students, as well as any areas where students might actually need some acceleration. And that will help us plan strategically for instructional next steps. In terms of suggestions or guidance on data to bring, we would encourage you to bring in a data set that first provides reliable information about student achievement. And I'll talk about that further in just a second. Second, we'd encourage you to bring in a data set that covers multiple standards that was taught over a longer period of time. And that will simply allow us to engage in deep, pretty wide exploration of student learning. We'd also encourage you to bring in a data set that's current as possible. So that probably means Q3 for you all, given that in Q4, when remote learning started, my sense is probably many of you stopped giving formal assessments. So a good current assessment would probably be one that occurred during Q3. But also know that you could apply this process that we're going to cover to assessment data that you gather early on in the 2020 school year, which we would definitely encourage you to do. Going back to assessments that are pretty reliable, I'll give you just a few examples. I know that many of you use map growth for reading and for mathematics, or for either or. That's a good example of a reliable assessment. There is a lot of evidence of the reliability of that assessment. Also, I know that many of you use local benchmarks, and if you feel that those are assessments that were really nicely developed, meaning they have items that align really well to specific standards, if they were put together and reviewed by people who understand the standards and the content really well, if there's a relatively high number of items, say at least 20, if there is a reasonable balance of depth of knowledge, like approximately 20% DOK1, approximately 60% DOK2, and approximately 20% DOK3, then chances are really good that that's going to be a reliable assessment. So feel free to bring in one of those as well. We have included, well, we're going to send you a table that you can use that will do two things. One, it'll give us a heads up about the kind of content, well, it'll give us a heads up of the content area and grade level that you would like to look at in terms of analyzing a data set. But this table will also help ensure that you're bringing in a data set that is going to yield reliable data. So let me show you an example. So here is a completed table, and you can see starting on the left-hand column and then moving over to the right-hand columns. What the type of assessment that we're looking at here would be English Language Arts grade 5, Q3 benchmark assessment. So this would be benchmark number 3 for Q3. The purpose of the assessment is to assess mastery of the standards that are being assessed on this assessment. And you can see those standards in the column to the right. So the reading standards for literary text, or some of them, should I say, some of the reading standards for informational texts, 2 of the writing standards, and the language standards are being assessed on this test. There are 17 items, and you can see there's a pretty good balance of depth of knowledge on this assessment. And there's a far right-hand column where you could let us know any other related data points that you have in your data file as well. For instance, if your data file includes information about the gender of the student, whether the student qualifies for free or reduced priced meals, if you have information about student attendance in that particular time period, that would be really great information to have as well. So like I said, Completing this table will do a couple of things. One, it'll give our team a heads up of the grade level and content area that you'd like to focus on in terms of data analysis. And if you complete this table, I think it'll give you a heads up in terms of, yep, this is looking like a good data set for us to analyze. It looks like this is going to be a data set that covers a large number of standards. There's a fairly high number of items. There is pretty good balance of rigor on this assessment. And so that's the twofold advantage of completing this table. We'd ask that you complete it and send it to me via email no later than June the 29th. And what we'll do is we'll give you some very brief feedback on this table. You don't need to send us the data. So please do not send us the data related to that assessment by June 29th. All you need to do is send us the completed table. And like I said, we'll provide feedback by July the 1st. Do bring the data for that particular assessment to the webinars on July 9th and 14th. And when you have that data set compiled, it should include the following. What we should have would be some aggregate level performance, such as a total score, like the total percentage correct for particular students. If you have a scaled score, like for those of you who might want to look at map data, you're going to have a scaled score, and that's going to provide aggregate high-level information about student performance as well. So make sure that your data file includes some aggregate level score, like total score. If you have item level data as well, such as the percentage of students who answered that item correctly, as well as the percentage that selected each incorrect answer choice, if you have information about what standard each item is measuring, and if you have information about how rigorous each item was, that is like DOK1, DOK2, DOK3, that would be great information to have at your fingertips as well. Like I said earlier, if you have some related data points like demographic information in your data file, that would be fantastic to have. Make sure that that information is at your fingertips if you have it. Some other information that you might have reflected in your data file that can be very, very helpful to have if you have it would be data related to things like attendance, behavior, student self-efficacy related to a specific content area like language arts, reading, writing, or mathematics, whatever the content area might be. You might also have some information about whether teachers were using specific instructional interventions or curricular materials. If you have that information, that can be great information to have as well, because learning gaps that we see in achievement data are likely to vary based on factors like these. So if you have information related to data points such as these, then we would recommend that you make sure that those are reflected in your data file. Okay. 2 webinars from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. on both July 9th and 14th. And you can see that the process is really about asking increasingly detailed questions about the data that we're seeing. And when we answer those questions, it's going to position us really well to make some very, very strategic action plans, to formulate some very, very concrete, appropriately differentiated next steps with our students. Some students are going to have learning gaps. Some students might actually need some acceleration related to whatever is being measured on the assessment. And so we'll ask increasingly detailed questions on these 2 webinars that will really help us formulate really solid, differentiated action plans for all of our students. And like I said, this is a process that will apply to one data set on this pair of webinars, but this process could be applied to any data set, to any assessment that you have. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me prior to the webinars on the 9th and the 14th. Here's my email address. We're really looking forward to seeing you. Hope that you have a great rest of your summer between now and the 9th, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.